Welcome to the Hire Truckers Podcast, where we interview experts in driver recruiting. We provide industry insights, marketing trends, and motivation to help you level up your recruiting game. Welcome to the Hire Truckers Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Craddock, and today I have Kendra Patton-Richard with Roadrunner. And previously, so Kendra's been in the industry for 17 years. I met her back in the US Express days. So she started out there 17 years ago and then transitioned up in leadership, got her first leadership opportunity within the first year and kind of climbed the ranks there at US Express. And then she went to CRST for a while, and then now she's at Roadrunner. And right now they're around 400, 500 owner-operators. And so I'm super excited to have Kendra. We've been wanting to get her on for a while, and so super excited that she was able to carve out the time today and be on the show. And so we're going to dive into everything from like growth mindset to industry insights to what is she reading and learning, how is she growing, and then just industry insights and advice she has just for peers in the industry since she's been doing this a little while, and it just has had an incredible amount of success. And 17 years in the transportation industry, that means like 10 pivots because it changes all the time. And that's one thing Kendra's done consistently is just make those pivots, make those changes, adopt new technology. So I'm super excited to dive in with her today. So Kendra, specifically, one of the things I saw in the show notes as you chatted with Ginger before the show is that you were a college athlete. And so what sport did you play or participate in, and how does that impact driver recruiting?
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Yeah, so I was a track and field athlete. So I did sprinter. I was actually a sprinter. So I did anything from, let's say, 60 meters to 400 meters. So relays, 4x1, 4x2, 4x4. I think they still call it that these days. But yeah, so I definitely was I was pretty decent at it, I would say.
Awesome. And so how does that translate to driver recruiting and just this industry? Like, have those things you learned doing that?
I would say how it transpires into this industry is that it forces you to have that win-win attitude that I got to figure this out. I got to get it. I want to be successful. It's always that little burning desire for you to succeed, to win, smash goals, crush them. You want to always be the best at what you do. So it's that you keep that competitive edge, if that makes sense, coming from being in athletics and just having that will to want to be good at what you do.
Mm-hmm. I almost feel like that's just super necessary in our industry just because it can get really hard. And that's, on the upside when you're needing to add a ton of drivers or in a down market where you can't bring on everybody you want to and have to make cuts. So, I mean, it can be all over the place. So you kind of have to have that will to win and learn and grow. I love it. So you got back into the industry, and some of the technology being used were things like fax machines. And so, and I know you're probably not using a fax machine today. So how and when do you pivot on technology? Because there's so many new options, and how do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned, I recall, I started this industry as a recruiter briefly, and I remember having to go call a driver. Oh, okay, I'm going to fax this to you, and having to get in line and wait on my peers to finish up at the fax machine so you can send off a fax or so you can email the documents out. I think it is very important to stay up to speed on technology because you don't want to get left behind. I think that is one of the biggest things if staying ahead. I think understanding how technology is evolving for us. You now have the AI technology, you have your chat bots and all of this stuff. It's just very important that you're staying connected, understanding what factors or aspects of this new technology can benefit our industry and trying to implement it. The biggest thing is, like they say, don't get left behind the generational curve or the wheel or however they say that. But it's extremely important that you stay up to speed with everything because you can be improving your processes, to the point of the way we did things probably when I entered the industry 17 years ago, it's definitely not the same. So my team know my biggest motto is speed the lead. So use the technology so you can speed up your processes, because now in today's economy, or just our mindset is that we want instant gratification. We want stuff now. And so the longer we take, and if we're not keeping up with technology, it's going to put you behind the wheel.
Mm-hmm. So do you track that with your team? Like how quickly they're getting back to the lead? If so, kind of what metrics do you use on that?
Absolutely. So I do track it. I do use our ATS system, which we use Tenstreet. I do look at that to see how long it takes my team to contact leads. I look at time frame between each status as well too. And I'm even one of those, when I get time, of course, my management team or leadership team will go through and do this too. But when I have free time, I'm constantly looking in my recruiters' baskets and seeing how quickly have they reached out to their leads, how long have leads been sitting. All of those things are extremely important. So, yes, definitely want to make sure that we're looking at how long it's taking our recruiters to contact drivers, and also, too, how long it takes them to move from status to status.
So does that make a big impact on hiring?
Yes, it does. It definitely does. I'm a very personable person, so I do extend like my number to drivers and let them know, like, as they come aboard to Roadrunner, if it's something you need or if you need help through the process, reach out and give me a call. So it's not a good thing I don't like for drivers to call and say, hey, I haven't been able to reach this person, or I need help reaching my recruiter, because I'm going to immediately get with that recruiter and say, hey, what's going on here? How can we better support? So it is important that they are reaching out to these drivers within a timely manner, and also, too, that you're following up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things I have with my teams is like if we get like a request from a client, like in terms of like, hey, I need this, or what's going on with this, or some type of question, that I'm like, okay, it's okay if we get that question once, but if we get it 10 different times, it's like, how do we operationalize and almost predict what they're going to ask? Because it's almost always the same process, whether it's an owner operator contracting on with you guys, or like in my world, like working on the marketing and tech side of recruiting. It's just, it's going to be the same questions like, hey, I haven't heard anything, or what's going on, and you just want to, and you almost even know the day it's going to come in, like that. I would think you could almost anticipate, like if the owner operator hadn't heard in 4 days or 5 days, like, you know what question you're going to get. One of the things you mentioned in your pre-call with Ginger, as we were prepping for the show, was that you've had some different mentors. So how did you go about getting those mentors in your career? Because we have a lot of managers are recruiting, directors are recruiting, recruiters that are looking to grow into different roles in the fleet. And so how did you get your mentors? How have you maintained those relationships?
Mm-hmm.
Any advice you have there?
I would definitely say it. I've had the opportunity to be in the room with some pretty good people. I mean, even earlier in my career, having the opportunity to join meetings with executives and sit in a meeting and brainstorm with them, come up with different suggestions, opinions, and then even having the support from my previous bosses or managers. They have played a very valuable role in my career too as well. So even now, I would say I just stay connected to them. I try to reach out, make sure everybody, just staying connected. Networking is a really big thing as well, too. So it's almost, I always say, I think to Ginger, I mentioned, I never want to be the smartest person in the room. And that's in anything, even if in my personal life, I always want to be around people where I could continue to grow. I think there's always an opportunity to grow and to continue to learn, because the moment you feel like I know it all, you're failing yourself. So I definitely say take an opportunity to get around positive people that are doing great things, people who are meeting and exceeding goals, and surround yourself with those individuals and take notes, learn from how they brainstorm, how they troubleshoot, how they come up with new ideas, and how they're innovative. So that's kind of my little motto, is just trying to be around people where I could continue to grow, even in my current role. I enjoy being around, whether it's other executives, my boss Tomash, and just seeing how he troubleshoots, how he look at different scenarios as well too, because that's another stepping stone for me to continue to grow.
That's awesome. Yeah, I joined like a mastermind group recently. That's like a group of other business owners, and like the average revenue of the business was like 10 times higher than our current revenue. And yeah, it's one of those things that's kind of like imposter syndrome, because I'm like, okay, like I'm not at this level yet in my current business. But at the same time, I'm like, that is the best place to be in, because any of the challenges that I'm going through, like they've been through them. But yeah, it's definitely, for me, it's a little uncomfortable, like getting around people that are ahead of me in different areas. But I think you kind of choose your discomfort. It's either you're uncomfortable because you're falling behind, or you're uncomfortable because you're growing. So, and that kind of goes back to the sports analogy and always pushing to grow. It doesn't matter where you are. It's like, that's just the new standard. And then how do you grow from there and improve? So.
Agreed. I think I'm really big on that, even with my friendships and stuff. If I have friends I have one friend I can use that is actually transitioning to, she has her own property management business, and I'm always encouraging her, like, keep going, you're doing great, or, let's celebrate this milestone. So it's just a matter of just trying to encourage and support each other and taking little nuggets. I don't think it's like based around just one particular transportation industry, but you could get nuggets from anybody on how they manage and how they navigate different aspects of their business.
And I think that's a good point too, of like being around people that encourage you, and then also being that encourager. Because I've had seasons of my life where a lot of the people around me, especially making the jump, starting my own company 5 years ago, of just like, why are you doing that? Like, that's not safe. It's whatever. And then I've had other people that are all like, you can do it. You can conquer, you can achieve your dreams and objectives. And yeah, over time, it's been a little bit hard, but I've had to distance myself from the people that are like, you can't, or like saying the no's, and then be around the people that are like, you can do it. I mean, I even remember the first few people that, when I started my company, they were like, you got this, you can do it. And just encourage me and even encourage me today. Like I had someone reach out yesterday, at a competitor, and they were like, keep on doing what you're doing, and just encouraging. And I'm like, those are the people I want to be around.
That's right.
There's just so much power in that. And I really hear what you said too, of just your intentionality with encouraging those around you, like even your peer or friend doing the property management business. And then my, same thing for me. Like I've learned because not many people in my masterminds or different groups I'm in are in transportation. I'd say it's like 0.1%. And so, I'm learning from coaching businesses, real estate businesses, other marketing and tech companies. It's just all over the board. And so, yeah, you can definitely learn from other industries. So one of the questions I had is like, what do you assign to your team as reading? I saw that's one of the things that you do is go through books with your team.
Yeah, currently we're working. The most recent assignment I've given was a John Maxwell reading, The 5 Steps to Leadership. A lot of times somebody had to help me get to where I am today. And so that's a big part, as you mentioned, mentorship. And so when I have other individuals, or whether it's my leadership team or even just individuals that work up under me or may work with me, that express a desire to want to be better, then I'm always trying to see how I can support them and help them. So that's probably the most recent reading that I've assigned out. And it just goes through the different phases of leadership. And you easily and can quickly kind of identify what type of leader you really are and kind of embody that, because everybody, and I think one of the biggest things, I'm going to go back a little bit, is that you have to learn that you can't manage everybody the exact same way. People need different things. Your approach to certain people, you can say, hey, go get this done, and they're going to execute it right off the fly. And then in other scenarios, you may have to say, hey, I need you to get this done by this timeline in order for them to execute it. So you have to know those different levels to how you lead people and how you motivate people. So I think that's very important for any leader out here or anyone that's or has aspirations to want to be in a leadership role. It's just understanding, you can't lead and motivate everybody the same.
So I have two John Maxwell books on my shelf over there. Mm-hmm. So one is so I read when I was 16. My dad encouraged me to read it. It's the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Mm-hmm. And my dad still to this day, like he's in hospital administration here in Austin, and he's taking his team through it right now and having them lead different chapters in it. And so I have that. And then I have Javon is somebody I used to work with at one of my previous companies. And he was really good at developing teams and encouraging them and building them. And he told me to read Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. And so I probably read that 12 years ago or so. And so I have that on my shelf too, because I reread it in the last year. And then, so cool thing, when you were mentioning John Maxwell before we started recording, I was like, oh, I have something to share. So I got to meet him in person back in January. I'd heard him speak, but I got to meet him this time in a little bit smaller group setting. I didn't know he was going to be there, and he ended up being there with some other authors and got to spend some time with him. And then I'm getting to spend time with him again this coming October, and I'm just super excited about that. Cool. I went up to him and because I had an opportunity one-on-one just to thank him, be like, you don't even know how much, I know a million people have told you this, but how much your books have helped me in my leadership growth and journey. So that was kind of a cool moment, 20 years in the making.
Cool.
So
yeah, that's cool.
So this industry's been, kind of in a bunch of hard seasons, but in the last couple of years for a lot of different fleets and recruiting departments, it's been challenging for different reasons. But how do you keep a good morale and encourage competition in your teams?
Mm-hmm. I would say, for one, the biggest thing for me is that I listen. You have to listen to your team. One thing about it, I always try to make sure that I'm taking time to understand what it is that my team do every day on a daily basis. What some of the challenges that they're facing, are there valid challenges? How can I remove bottlenecks to help them continue to be successful? So I'm always trying to check in on them. I meet with my team generally weekly, try to figure out if there's any bottlenecks, how things are going. And if I feel the morale is down, then I'm constantly trying to see what things we can implement, how I can keep them encouraged, whether it's taking time out to just getting them out of the group setting and doing one-on-one phone calls with them, just to have that time with them to kind of allow them to vent and share some of their challenges, and then give me an opportunity to brainstorm on how I can better support them. I'm always trying to encourage them, keep them motivated, reminding them that even in the tough times that, hey, it's just the season that we're in right now, but continue to just keep pushing. When the market prior to COVID was booming, of course, it was much easier to hire drivers, but then in certain time frames now, it's like, hey, team, what may have taken one phone call to get a driver committed now may take 3 to 4 phone calls. So you have to adjust to the conditions that you're seeing within the market and just try to make the best of it. And also letting them know that they have that support. And I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, listening, that, if I had to say just one area I've failed the most over the years, it's listening, because I can too early try to fix the problem. And so I'll cut people off on my team, or I guess my old identity. My new identity is I'm improving in that area. Today's sponsor. Do you hire truck drivers in hard to fill areas, or do you need help creating efficiency in your recruiting department? You're not alone. With 50 plus years experience, Trucking Clicks specializes in data-driven strategies, industry-leading customer experience, and custom solutions that'll get you to your goal. Trucking Clicks is your go-to place for high-quality, direct leads at scale. Visit truckingclicks.com or call 512-982-0816 today. So what is it, how do you listen well? Because it sounds like you do that well with your team. Do you have any kind of strategies around that?
I give them an opportunity. The biggest thing is giving them an opportunity. I keep an open door policy. This is my biggest thing. And I always tell the team that they're free to vent. Respectfully vent. If it's something that you're faced with, you can vent. I'm a note taker. Sometimes if I found that it's valid, I'm going to jot it down, and then I'm going to try to say, okay, Kendra, how can you solve this problem? What opportunities do you have? But the biggest thing I always tell my team is that if I tell you no, something can't be done, I'm always going to explain to you the why, so that they understand it's not just one of those things where I'm just saying, no, I can't do this. And it's like, okay, well, she didn't tell me why, or I don't understand her reasoning behind it. But I also try to make sure that they understand. But I mean, the biggest thing is just communication, keeping that open line of communication, staying engaged with your team and letting them know that you're available for them if they need you. I just try to practice that. Sometimes, like you say, I may not always do the best at it, but I try to show up for my team on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that it's really evident, like when I'm not doing that, because I can create a lot of havoc really quickly. Like if I just react and talk too much and jump in and interject.
Yeah, some days really I do that too. I have to go back and say, oh, I apologize. I jumped the gun here, because I'm in this react. How do I react? How do we fix this problem? Sometimes sometimes I have to slow down and make sure I get all the details that I need. So it happens. It happens from time to time.
So the next section I was diving into that we talk about on the show is marketing trends. So what are you seeing right now at Roadrunner, or that you're hearing from other owner-operator centric fleets, that what's working well right now in marketing?
I would say what's working well currently, of course, everybody enjoys Google. Google continues to perform pretty well for us. I think Indeed is probably another one out there that does well. And I have to give credit to the ATS system of Tenstreet with their job board scrubbers and their posts out. I think that one is great as well, too. So I think that I find that we see a great deal of success through those few platforms that I just mentioned.
So Google's working well right now, and then Indeed, and then the Pulse. And do you use the job store too at Tenstreet?
I do, but not as I'm more tuned in. I think the better quality leads are coming from just the Pulse and auto replies. We've seen a couple different things that are being successful for us right now.
That's great. So what are you leveraging? Like how do you leverage? You mentioned Tenstreet, your applicant tracking system. So how does a team? Because you've seen a lot of implementations of different Tenstreet utilizations over the years. Like how does your team best leverage your applicant tracking system? Like if you had advice for other peers in the industry.
I mean, I would definitely strongly encourage you to make sure you're looking at the data. I take time, look at the data on a weekly basis. I want to understand what my conversion ratios are, what's my cost per leads as well, and making sure who's giving me quality candidates. So I think that's very important to make sure that you understand what is your lead flow, which vendors are working well for you, and if they're not working well for you, to go ahead and make an adjustment, re-strategize, make sure that your ads, your campaigns are speaking to the audience that you want them to speak to, and just make the necessary adjustments. And understand too, the big part is technology continues to change, just understanding that drivers, even with us with the Instagrams and TikToks and stuff, our attention span is really shrinking to that. We need instant gratification. So just making sure you understand that, and when you're trying to target your audience.
Mm-hmm. The crazy thing to me because it used to be that like a 15-second video was like sufficient, just a constant video. Mm-hmm. Now it's 15 seconds of 1 second clips. So it's actually like 15 videos and movements, and that's how you get engagement, because you literally have to grab their attention every second. And that just blows my mind.
Yes, they want all the fireworks right then and there quickly.
Yeah, because it went from like 15 seconds in a short period of time, from like 15 seconds to really 1 second. Mm-hmm. And even, when TikTok came out and some of the short form video content, and you started to have 15-second videos, that was like just revolutionary. How can you communicate something in 15 seconds? Yeah, it's just that just continues to amaze me. How quickly things change with that. So my next question is for your peers in the industry. So other vice presidents of recruiting, executive team, directors of recruiting, managing recruiting departments, recruiters, kind of, all the different roles you've been in over the years. What advice do you have for your peers in the industry?
I look at this industry, I just say it's constantly, the wheel is going to keep moving. You just have to constantly keep reinventing the wheel, making sure you're just trying to take time. Sometimes it's not all about just going in and spending a whole bunch of money to get more leads and to get more leads in the door, but it's more so about take time, take a look at your processes. Just as we mentioned, as technology continues to evolve, make sure you're not getting left behind, okay? So just take time, look things over, see what you've been doing. Don't get comfortable because you've been doing the same thing and it's always worked. If you're still doing something you did 10 years ago, I guarantee you probably want to go back and look at that process and see how you can improve it and make it better. And be open to feedback and different suggestions too. And don't be afraid of change. That is the biggest thing because the change is going to continue to keep happening.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like, that you're really open to change, like in terms of, like you were mentioning, like almost like switching vendors, changing things, like just look at what the data tells you and don't be afraid to switch. Do you ever have like fears of that, like that you switch and then like the ROI is not the same? Let's say it's like you pick a vendor that's not performing as well as you were doing. Like, do you have fears of that? And if so, how do you overcome that?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel a lot of things, most things are a gamble. Sometimes you have to be willing to take a risk. You never know if you don't try. But, of course, don't put all your eggs in one basket, I would say. That's going to be the most important thing. But I'm not afraid to take a risk or to step out and do something different. But also, too, I'm going to take time to strategize and make sure I have a backup plan in the event that something doesn't work out. So I always keep a plan B and C as well as a backup. But so far, I've been pretty successful with it. But I try not to fear change as much, and I try not to be so resistant to change, but try to embrace it more than anything.
Mm-hmm. Does that get harder or easier, like with 17 years in the industry?
I think it gets easier, to be honest with you. I guess it would depend more so on what the particular change is, but I think it gets easier, especially when you take time and strategize and make sure that you look at everything and then also make sure you have that safety net in place as well, too. So you can't let, the walls come falling down based on something that's a change. But I'd rather we take risks than not do anything because we're fearing the change.
So where is you can approach this from either the owner operator angle or just the driver market in general, but where is the market headed? Like, and I know we don't know for a fact, but where do you think the market's headed as we round out the end of 24, go through the election cycle, go into 2025? Like, where do you think transportation and recruitment is headed?
That's a good question. And like you said, I really don't know the answer to it. I would say that what we've looked at in the past is like usually you can say, okay, right around this time, this is what we're going to be faced with. And you can kind of look back and strategize, or you can look at previous data and say, this is going to happen, or we're going to be here. I think in some cases you can still do that in some scopes, but I think right now it's just like the market is continuing to change. We are continuing to be successful here at Roadrunner, but I definitely think that it's going to be extremely important that we continue to keeping your gauge on what's happening within the market. What's going to happen, I do feel we may have seen some drivers exit. I'm not really sure, to different professions just from pre-COVID, but I think that we will recover. This industry is pretty resilient, so I think that we should be able to, for some, see over some of the challenges that we're being faced with. But I don't know. Again, I'm not really sure where we're headed and what direction we're headed in, but I'm hoping that we continue to see a little bit of an uptick. But as I mentioned, we've been very successful here at Roadrunner through the changes.
Awesome. So next question is, what books have you read just throughout your career that have been impactful to you? And I'm just curious.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. And I would probably say, if anything, definitely leadership books. Getting in, making sure I'm checking myself into new ways of leading my team and making sure I'm doing a good job. Again, not becoming stagnant, but I can't think of any books right now. I know I do a lot of John Maxwell books, and sometimes I try to read them with my team, of course, as I assign them. But the biggest thing, probably more so for me, has just been more. I think the biggest thing now is just mental health, making sure you're taking care of yourself, making sure that, you're creating some type of work-life balance for yourself as well, and making sure that you're good. So my biggest thing now that I've been focused on sometimes is just kind of more of the mental health, spiritual reading. And then also, too, sometimes I like to just kind of get away from everything and kind of just check out and read something that has absolutely nothing to do with work or anything else, just so I can get my mind off of the constant grind of, okay, how many drivers do we have for orientation this week? Or how am I going to do, get more people in the door, So I like to kind of escape a little bit into other avenues as well.
So kind of last question to round it out is, what are your goals kind of outside of work?
Right now, I will tell you, honestly, my biggest goal right now is for me to finish furnishing my house. I just moved, so I'm in the process of trying to work on that. So that is one goal that I have currently. But outside of that, I think it's just traveling, doing a little bit more traveling. I'm trying to think of where my next destination is and just trying to enjoy life, enjoying being successful both in the role, but also to taking time out to just enjoy traveling, doing things that I enjoy doing, spending time with my family and friends. That's kind of where I am. And then stocks. I like to play in stocks a little bit. So my goal is just to continue to keep growing my portfolio a bit. And hopefully, it lands me some positive investments for the future.
That's fun. Yeah, I enjoy all types of different investments, and I've done all kinds of things over the years, and enjoyed doing stocks, like picking direct stocks as well. And but I kind of got away from most of that just 5 years ago, and just over the last 5 years, because I had some different mentors say, like, inch wide, mile deep. And so I'm 100% focused on, building the current business I'm working on in the industry. But that's been really hard, because as an entrepreneur, like, my brain is always thinking about, like, I want to do real estate. I want to do stocks. I want to do crypto. I want to do this other business. I want to do, it's just crazy. This is like the longest, because I got out of the industry for 2 years after leaving my previous company. And so got into like real estate marketing and marketing for startups and all kinds of things for a couple of years before I got back in transportation. And then I've been back in it for 3 years now. And it's been the longest that I haven't launched some type of other business. And I just know, like, hey, this is a 20-year play. Like, this is a long play, and to do it well and with excellence. And so, but yeah, I want to pick your brain on what you've learned with that journey too at some point. So, okay. And then the other thing, so yeah, my wife and I, like, we try to take 1 or 2 trips a year that are just us. And I kind of saw in the notes, so are you taking a trip with your husband soon that's just the two of you without the kids?
Yeah, so we've recently just came back from a short little cruise that we did. And then also I was in St. Lucia in March, which was great. So I definitely plan to go back there. I could go with him or by myself right about now. I've enjoyed it.
That's awesome.
It's very peaceful. Nice, very nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're looking forward to, like, late July. Lauren and I are taking a 8-day trip. I usually don't take off that long, but we're doing an 8-day trip out to Colorado. And some of it will be just us, and then some of it will be with some friends and other business owners. So I'm super excited about that. And we have a 4-year-old and a 15-month-old, but we still try to have the time just us, and because it's so important for our relationship and goal setting as a couple. And so, yeah, I'm just super excited about that. And then the kids get time with Gigi, which is Ginger that you met. So on the ranch.
Oh, they're going to love that. She's
And so
sending
they,
awesome pics all the time.
yeah, it's always an adventure. So yeah, well, thank you so much, Kendra, for your time today. And
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining the Hire Truckers podcast. Hope you have a great week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Our goal with the Hire Truckers podcast is to provide industry insights, marketing trends, and motivation to level up your recruiting game. If we added value, take a few seconds to share this with your network. Have a great week.